I mean, they asked me where I wanted to go, some of my destinations, I gave them to them, and here we are.
Kevin Durant just spilled everything about his blockbuster trade saga, and the behind-the-scenes details are absolutely insane. 7 teams were involved, secret meetings happened, and KD's revealing exactly how it all played out. The real story is nothing like what the media reported. Let's break it down. The live confession that shocked the basketball world. Kevin Durant, in his own words, pulled back the curtain on how modern NBA trades really work, admitting his role in what would become the first 7-team trade in NBA history. He essentially gave fans a masterclass in player empowerment that we've never witnessed before. The moment that changed everything happened when an interviewer asked a seemingly innocent question, and Durant's response would send shockwaves through the basketball world.
Kevin, people are going to hold on to that dictate what you want to do. Did you have a hand in this?
Most definitely.
How much of it?
I mean, they asked me where I wanted to go, some of my destinations, I gave them to them, and here we are.
Those words, most definitely yeah, represented a seismic shift in how we understand player agency in professional sports. Here was one of the greatest players of all time openly admitting that he didn't just passively accept being traded, he actively participated in determining his destination. But what makes this revelation even more extraordinary is the sheer complexity of what Durant had helped orchestrate behind the scenes. This wasn't just a simple 2-team trade between the Phoenix Suns and Houston Rockets. What Durant had influenced was a transaction so complex that it required the coordination of 7 different NBA franchises: the Houston Rockets, Phoenix Suns, Atlanta Hawks, Brooklyn Nets, Golden State Warriors, Los Angeles Lakers, and Minnesota Timberwolves. The scope of this deal was unprecedented, involving 13 players, 1 first-round draft pick, 12 second-round picks, and a second-round pick swap. To understand how extraordinary this moment was, you have to appreciate the broader context of what Durant was revealing. For decades, NBA trades were primarily driven by front office executives making calculated decisions about player movement. Players might express preferences privately, but they rarely had the leverage to actually dictate terms, especially not to the extent where their input could influence a deal involving 7 teams and dozens of assets. But Durant's confession wasn't just about his personal influence. It was about the evolution of player empowerment in the modern NBA. When he said they asked me where I wanted to go, he was revealing a level of consultation that represents a fundamental shift in how superstar players navigate their careers. According to ESPN, Durant had provided the Suns with a list of preferred destinations, and his preferences ultimately shaped how this historic trade unfolded. The timing of Durant's revelation was equally remarkable. The trade was finalized on July 6, 2025, when the NBA's annual moratorium ended, but the initial agreement had been reached weeks earlier during the NBA Finals. What Durant was describing was a weeks-long process where he had been actively involved in shaping the direction of his career while the basketball world speculated about his future.
Crazy last couple weeks, but I'm glad it's over with.
Those last couple weeks that Durant referenced weren't just about waiting for a trade to be announced. They were about him actively participating in one of the most complex roster transactions in sports history. The stress and uncertainty he alluded to wasn't just about where he might end up playing, but about whether this incredibly intricate 7-team deal could actually be executed under the NBA's complex salary cap rules. What makes Durant's admission even more fascinating is how it illuminates the behind-the-scenes negotiations that most fans never get to see. The new NBA collective bargaining agreement, effective from 2023, introduced stricter salary matching rules and restrictions for high-spending teams, making it exponentially more difficult to execute trades involving superstar players like Durant. The fact that his preferences had to be accommodated while also satisfying the financial constraints of 7 different franchises shows just how much influence he wielded in this process. Durant's revelation about having a hand in this also exposed the selective nature of his involvement in trade decisions. Reports indicate that both the Golden State Warriors and Minnesota Timberwolves had explored trading for Durant earlier in the process, but Durant's preferences steered the deal toward Houston. This level of control over his own destiny is something Durant has learned to leverage throughout his career, having been through multiple high-profile trades and free agency decisions. When the interviewer pressed him about why he chose Houston specifically, Durant's response revealed the strategic thinking behind his decision.
We had a great season last year, love their leadership. I felt like I'd be a good addition.
This seemingly simple explanation actually reveals the depth of Durant's analysis of potential landing spots. The Houston Rockets had finished the 2024-25 season with a 52-30 record, securing the number 2 seed in the Western Conference. Durant wasn't just looking for any team willing to trade for him, he was strategically choosing a destination where he could maximize his chances of winning another championship. The leadership Durant referenced was particularly significant. Houston's coach Ime Udoka had previously worked with Durant during their time together in Brooklyn, and their their prior relationship was reportedly a key factor in Durant's preference for Houston. This personal connection demonstrates how modern NBA stars consider not just the roster composition and championship potential of teams, but also the relationships and comfort level they'll have with coaching staffs and front office personnel. But perhaps the most revealing aspect of Durant's confession was how casually he discussed wielding this level of influence.
You know, when people could just hang your career in the balance like that and just choose what they want to do with your career, it's a nerve-wracking feeling, but being able to dictate what you want to do and then being with a team that values you, and I'm looking forward to it.
This statement perfectly encapsulates the evolution of player empowerment in the modern NBA. Durant acknowledges the traditional power structure where teams controlled player movement, but he also celebrates his ability to dictate what you want to do, a level of agency that would have been unthinkable for even the biggest stars a generation ago. The historical significance of Durant's admission extends beyond just this single trade. This 7-team transaction surpassed the previous NBA record of a 6-team trade in 2024 involving Klay Thompson's move to the Dallas Mavericks. But more importantly, it established a new template for how superstar players might navigate their careers in the future. Durant's willingness to publicly discuss his role in orchestrating this trade could embolden other stars to be more vocal about their preferences and more demanding about their destinations. The complexity of accommodating Durant's preferences while also satisfying the salary cap constraints of 7 different teams cannot be overstated. According to The Athletic, the new CBA's trade exception rules and salary matching requirements necessitated the involvement of multiple teams, each serving a specific purpose in making the overall deal legally compliant with league regulations. The fact that Durant's wishes were the driving force behind this intricate financial puzzle shows just how much the NBA has evolved toward player empowerment. But Durant's influence was just the beginning. The real story lies in how 7 front offices engineered what many called an impossible puzzle, and the mechanics behind it might just redefine how we think about trades, dissecting the most complex trade in sports history. Now let's break down the mind-boggling complexity of what actually transpired. When you examine the specific details of this 7-team trade, it becomes clear that we're not just looking at a simple player swap. We're witnessing a financial masterpiece that required months of coordination and represents the most intricate roster transaction in professional sports history. The magnitude of this deal becomes immediately clear when you realize just how many moving parts were involved. This trade involved 13 players, 1 first-round draft pick, 12 second-round picks, and a second-round pick swap across 7 different franchises. To put this in perspective, most NBA trades involve 2 teams and maybe 3 or 4 players total. This deal required the coordination of 7 front offices, multiple player agents, and the league office to ensure everything complied with the complex salary cap regulations.
Breaking news out of today's NBA as the Kevin Durant trade to the Houston Rockets was just completed earlier today, and it officially enters the history books as the first ever 7-team trade in NBA history.
The centerpiece of this deal, of course, was Kevin Durant moving from the Phoenix Suns to the Houston Rockets. But Durant wasn't traveling alone to Houston. The Rockets also acquired veteran center Clint Capella from the Atlanta Hawks, immediately addressing 2 major needs: a superstar scorer and front court depth. This dual acquisition transformed Houston from a promising young team with playoff potential into legitimate championship contenders overnight. For Houston, the return on investment was staggering when you consider what they gave up versus what they received. They parted with Jalen Green, Dillon Brooks, the number 10 pick in the 2025 NBA draft, Kaman Malawa, Rasheer Fleming, number 31 overall, Kobe Brea, number 41 overall, Dequan Plowden, and multiple second-round picks. On paper, that might seem like a lot to give up, but when you consider what they received in return, the trade becomes a masterclass in win-now decision-making.
Oh, well, you got to point directly to the Rockets. First of all, they get Kevin Durant for, a minimal, really kind of risk assessment here. Like, they give up Jalen Green. They weren't really sure they were rocking with that contract that they gave him, although that could end up being a steal if he plays well for Phoenix.
This analysis perfectly captures why Houston was so willing to make this deal. Kevin Durant, at 36 years old, was coming off a season where he averaged 26.6 points, 6.0 rebounds, and 4.2 assists per game while shooting 52.7% from the field and 40% from three-point range. These aren't the numbers of a declining superstar. These are the statistics of a player who remains one of the most efficient scorers in NBA history. The decision to include Jalen Green in the package wasn't taken lightly by Houston, but it was influenced by what they had seen from him in crucial moments. Durant is one of only a few players in NBA history to average over 25 points per game on 50% shooting for 3 consecutive seasons, demonstrating a level of consistency and efficiency that Green had yet to achieve.
Houston got KD. They got the score that they wanted. They got the big shot maker, the big player that when they get to the Western Conference Finals possibly, They got a guy that they know that we can give him the ball and he can put us where we need to be.
Dwayne Wade's analysis here highlights a crucial aspect of Houston's decision-making process. The Rockets had seen enough of their young players in high-pressure playoff situations to know that while they had tremendous potential, they weren't ready to be the primary scoring options on a championship-level team. Durant, on the other hand, has proven his ability to perform in the biggest moments throughout his career. The addition of Clint Capella was equally significant for Houston's championship aspirations. Capella, who had previously played for the Rockets from 2014 to 2020, was returning to a familiar system where he had thrived earlier in his career. Capella averaged 11.8 points, 11.3 rebounds, and 1.4 blocks per game over 5 seasons with the Hawks, providing exactly the kind of rim protection and interior presence that Houston needed to complement their perimeter-oriented offense. But let's examine what the Phoenix Suns received in return, because their haul tells an equally fascinating story about franchise direction and long-term planning. The Suns acquired Jalen Green, Dillon Brooks, Common Maliwak, the No. 10 pick, Rasheer Fleming, Kobe Brea, Daquan Plowden, who was later waived, and 5 second-round picks. This package represents a complete philosophical shift for Phoenix, moving from a win-now approach centered around aging superstars to a youth-focused rebuild.
Who would the Suns get, though? Because you're also a Suns fan.
I mean, Jalen Green is probably gone. To be honest, if they can do a deal if they can get Katie and Booker where they give up maybe Jabari Smith and Jalen Green, maybe not all three.
This early speculation about the trade packages shows just how valuable Jalen Green was considered in trade discussions. The fact that he became the centerpiece of Phoenix's return package demonstrates both his potential and Houston's willingness to part with significant young talent to acquire Durant. Jalen Green, the centerpiece of Phoenix's return, is a fascinating case study in potential versus production. The 23-year-old guard averaged 21.0 points, 4.6 rebounds, and 3.4 assists per game in the 2024-25 season, showcasing the kind of scoring ability that made him the number 2 overall pick in the 2021 NBA draft. However, his efficiency numbers and playoff performance had left some questions about his readiness to be a primary option on a contending team, which is ultimately why Houston was willing to include him in the Durant package. Dillon Brooks brought something entirely different to Phoenix: defensive intensity and veteran leadership. Brooks averaged 14.0 points, 3.7 rebounds, and 1.7 assists in 75 games during the 2024-25 season. But his real value comes from his defensive versatility and his willingness to take on the opposing team's best perimeter players. His toughness and grit, as noted by Suns management, represents exactly the kind of culture change Phoenix was seeking after their disappointing 36-46 season. Perhaps the most intriguing piece of Phoenix's return was Common Maliwak, the 7-foot center they selected with the number 10 pick. Described as a generational defensive talent with remarkable agility for his size, Maliwak represents the kind of long-term investment that suggests Phoenix is thinking beyond just the next season or two. At 18 years old, he's a player who could develop into a franchise cornerstone if his potential is realized. Now let's break down how the other 5 teams fit into this complex puzzle, because their involvement reveals just how intricate modern NBA transactions have become under the current collective bargaining agreements.
The other teams involved in the league record negotiations are the Atlanta Hawks, the Brooklyn Nets, the Golden State Warriors, the Los Angeles Lakers, and the Minnesota Timberwolves, including, the Rockets and the Suns would be the 6th and 7th team.
The Atlanta Hawks received David Roddy, a 2031 second-round pick swap and cash considerations, while also generating a traded player exception from the Capella deal. For Atlanta, this was primarily about salary cap management and future flexibility rather than immediate roster improvement. The Hawks had already made significant moves by acquiring Kristaps Porzingis in a separate trade, making Capella somewhat redundant in their front court rotation. The Brooklyn Nets received 2 second-round picks, 2026 and 2030, from the Houston Rockets, while sending the 36th pick in the 2025 NBA draft to the Phoenix Suns. This seemingly minor exchange was actually crucial to making the overall trade work from a salary cap perspective, and it added to Brooklyn's already substantial collection of future draft assets. The Golden State Warriors' involvement was perhaps the most interesting from a strategic standpoint. They acquired the draft rights to Alex Tuhey, number 52 pick, from Phoenix, and Jahmai Mashak, number 59 pick, from Houston, though they subsequently traded Mashak's rights to Memphis for Will Richard. For a team with championship aspirations and an aging core, these additions represent low-cost investments in young talent that could develop in their system.
Now, in a perfect world, the Lakers land, like a Nick Richards and like a Cam Whitmore, maybe the Dorian Finney-Smith becomes a sign and trade, and you end up landing a couple pieces, right? Realistically speaking, Lakers their most likely involvement in this is the acquisition of the 36th pick in the draft.
The Los Angeles Lakers acquired Adu Tiero, num 36 pick, while sending Rocco Zikarsky, num 45 pick, and cash to Minnesota. This swap was relatively minor in the grand scheme of the trade, but it demonstrates how even small adjustments can be necessary when coordinating deals involving multiple teams and complex salary cap considerations. Finally, the Minnesota Timberwolves received Rocco Zikarsky, 2 second-round picks, 2026 and 2032, cash considerations, and a traded player exception while sending Rasheer Fleming to Phoenix. For Minnesota, this was about accumulating future assets and maintaining roster flexibility while their core remains competitive.
Lakers would just kind of be the tacket. It's basically the other teams that, because it went down a chain, right? There were like several teams that, swapped all these second round picks and whatnot. And then the Lakers ended up pulling off the trade for the 36 pick. So it would just kind of be like they're linked to the chain.
This explanation perfectly captures how complex multi-team trades work in practice. What appears to be a single transaction is actually a series of interconnected deals, each serving a specific purpose in making the overall package work under the NBA's salary cap rules. The ripple effects and what this means for the future of the NBA. The Kevin Durant 7-team trade isn't just a historic transaction, it's a seismic shift that will reshape the NBA landscape for years to come. When you examine the immediate impacts on the teams involved and the broader implications for how future trades might be structured, it becomes clear that this deal represents a watershed moment in professional basketball that extends far beyond just Durant changing uniforms. Let's start with the most obvious impact. The Houston Rockets have instantly transformed from a promising young team into legitimate championship contenders. The addition of Kevin Durant to a roster that already featured rising stars like Alperen Sengun, Amen Thompson, and Jabari Smith Jr., combined with veteran leadership from Fred VanVleet, creates a perfect blend of youth and experience that could dominate the Western Conference for years to come.
Well, first of all, I'm ecstatic for Ime Udoka. He wanted this to happen. That's why this happened. Because I can tell you that Tillman Fertitta and others had their reservations. But Ime did not, and he wanted this, and so they believe in him, they believe in his vision, and they were going to do what he wanted them to do, and he wanted KD.
This insight from Stephen A. Smith reveals something crucial about how this trade came together. It wasn't just Durant's preferences driving the deal. It was also the vision of Houston's coaching staff, particularly Ime Udoka, who had previously worked with Durant in Brooklyn. The prior relationship between Durant and Udoka from their time together with the Nets was reportedly a significant factor in Durant's willingness to embrace the move to Houston. The basketball fit is undeniable. Durant's ability to score efficiently from anywhere on the court addresses Houston's primary weakness from their 2024 to 25 playoff run, where they struggled to generate consistent offense against elite defenses. His career shooting splits of 50% from the field and 38.7% from three-point range, combined with his ability to create shots in crucial moments, gives Houston exactly what they needed to take the next step from playoff team to championship contender.
That's number one. Number two, I think this elevates them to championship contention.
But the implications for Houston extend beyond just basketball. ESPN's reporting suggests that Durant aims to retire in Houston, which would provide the franchise with the kind of stability and legacy-building opportunity that small market teams rarely get with superstar players. If Durant can deliver a championship to Houston, he would cement his place in franchise history, alongside legends like Hakeem Olajuwon. The impact of this trade on Durant's legacy cannot be understated. Throughout his career, he's faced criticism for his team changes and decision-making, but this move to Houston represents something different. Unlike his controversial move to Golden State in 2016, this trade positions him as the veteran leader of a young, hungry team rather than joining an already established championship core.
And he is no joke. The Houston Rockets, I'm telling you right now, they are instant title contenders.
No argument for me, you guys. Houston. Yeah, I'm from the H, baby. It's a good day to be from the H.
Stephen A. Smith's enthusiastic endorsement reflects the broader sentiment around the league. This trade has fundamentally altered the championship conversation. Houston went from being a promising playoff team to being mentioned alongside the Oklahoma City Thunder and Denver Nuggets as legitimate title contenders. For the Phoenix Suns, this trade represents a complete philosophical reset. After missing the playoffs with a 36-46 record in 2024 to 25, the organization clearly decided that their win-now approach around aging superstars wasn't sustainable. The return package of Jalen Green, Dylan Brooks, Common Maluak, and multiple draft picks gives them the flexibility to build around Devin Booker, with younger, more cost-effective talent. Durant's own comments about the situation provide insight into the mutual nature of this decision.
I just felt like, they wanted me to go. So it's like, I'm glad we both, they got what they wanted and I got what I wanted. So we can move on, and good luck to them going forward. And I always remember my time there, but we on something else.
This mature response suggests that both Durant and the Suns organization recognized that a change of scenery would benefit everyone involved. Rather than forcing a situation that wasn't working, both sides collaborated to find a solution that maximized value for all parties. The Suns' decision to trade Durant also reflects the harsh realities of operating under the NBA's new collective bargaining agreement. Teams that exceed the second apron face severe restrictions on roster construction, making it nearly impossible to build depth around expensive veteran cores. The broader implications of this trade extend throughout the Western Conference playoff picture. The Oklahoma City Thunder, who finished with the best record in the West in 2024-25, now face a significantly more challenging landscape. Houston's addition of Durant creates another legitimate title contender, while teams like the Denver Nuggets, Dallas Mavericks, and Minnesota Timberwolves must now account for a Rockets team that could make serious noise in the playoffs.
I think it puts them right there with OKC to win the Western Conference to get to the NBA Finals. I mean, look, you're talking about a guy that hasn't averaged under 25 points since his rookie year. You're talking about a guy who hasn't shot under 50% since 2011.
This assessment highlights just how dramatically this trade has shifted the balance of power in the Western Conference. What was once considered a 2 or 3 team race between Oklahoma City, Denver, and perhaps Dallas has now become significantly more competitive, with Houston's emergence as a legitimate contender. From a league-wide perspective, this trade establishes important precedents for how future transactions might be structured. The involvement of 7 teams to execute a single deal shows how creative front offices have become in navigating the NBA's complex salary cap rules. This level of coordination and financial engineering suggests that we might see even more elaborate multi-team trades in the future as teams seek to optimize their rosters under increasingly restrictive financial constraints.
When the number 2 seed stayed the number 2 seed.
Yeah, but we all thought that Houston was punching above their weight. Like everybody, most of the people I talked to in NBA circles, when we went to the playoffs, everybody was like, oh yeah, we want to target Houston because we feel like they're young.
This insight reveals how the perception of Houston has completely changed overnight. Teams that previously viewed the Rockets as a favorable playoff matchup due to their youth and inexperience must now recalibrate their expectations. The addition of Durant's playoff experience and clutch gene transforms Houston from a team that other contenders wanted to face into one they'll actively try to avoid. NBA executives and analysts predict that multi-team trades will become more common as teams adapt to the new CBA's punitive measures. The Kevin Durant trade serves as a blueprint for how teams can work together to achieve their individual goals while satisfying the league's complex financial requirements. This collaborative approach to roster construction represents a fundamental shift from the traditionally adversarial nature of NBA transactions. The player empowerment aspect of this trade also sets significant precedents for how future superstar movements might unfold. Durant's public admission that he had significant input into his destination, combined with his ability to effectively veto potential trades to teams like Golden State and Minnesota, demonstrates the level of control that elite players can exercise over their careers. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed watching this video, click on one of the boxes playing on your screen to watch more similar content.